And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You know it's that time of the year. We are into our division previews. We will start with the AFC East today. Andrew DiCecco, each Thursday with Andrew, we'll look through the divisions, and that will lead us up to the opener for the Eagles. 8 weeks out from the opener, 8 divisions as we take a look at the AFC East today, which has been ruled by the Buffalo Bill. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills or Andrew DiCecco, who joins us now from the Inside the Birds podcast here on the Sports Bash. And we love talking about the divisions. Andrew has such a depth of knowledge of the draft and all the free agent moves. And that means, Andrew, we are into the official stretch run of football season. What is up, man?
Mike, how are you, man? Great to be with you.
As always, we got the football on our brains now. Training camp less than 2 weeks away. We're going to be looking at all the teams competing to try to take down the Birds this year. And we're going to start in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. I would imagine, if you're looking at the big picture of things, they are a threat to the Eagles for a Super Bowl. This is a team that has been on the cusp, and they made a couple of moves this offseason. Joey Bosa is in the mix there, but let's start with Josh Allen. He gets the extension and what he means and where he is in the pantheon of leading teams to a Super Bowl.
Well, Josh Allen's interesting, Mike, because he has all the accolades that you look for from the position, but he has yet to deliver Buffalo a Super Bowl, much less appear in a Super Bowl. But I think he's a unique case because despite all that, you have to look at him as a top 2, maybe even top 3 quarterback in the league. Now, I like what the Bills have done in surrounding him with more of a balanced attack. You have Khalil Shakir, the wide receiver who can stretch the field. Elijah Moore, someone who can work the middle of the field. The 2 tight ends in Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, I think, are going to help and take a step forward this year. And James Cook is a player that when you look at what Josh Allen had to work with, they were largely a pass-heavy team, and now they have some sort of balance to complement that, and I think James Cook's going to have another big season.
Yeah, obviously, you mentioned we talked yesterday with Mosher during Football at 4 about, Jalen Hurts wins a Super Bowl MVP, yet he's not in that category for many with the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes. But at some point, Lamar, Josh Allen, they're going to have to get what Jalen Hurts was able to accomplish, and that's a Super Bowl. You mentioned Shakir. They brought him back. They also, signed Joey Bosa on the defensive side of the ball, and you're wondering, he's kind of a boom or bust guy for that defense because the year before the Bills lost so many pieces. They just, they got rid of Diggs. They just started dismantling that defense. Is their defense able to hold up their end of the bargain?
Well, they have a couple of additions that I really like, including drafting cornerback Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky. They also signed Michael Holt, who's a sort of under-the-radar defensive lineman with the Rams, and he's more of a depth piece, but I think that he can provide something there. Also, Larry Ogunjobi, who's sort of a journeyman, and he's bounced around a little bit throughout his career, but he's a good interior presence there. But I like the addition of Joey. It's never been a question about ability with Joey. It's been about staying healthy and being able to sustain that level of consistency, and he hasn't had that luck in recent years. But I think that they have some decent pieces there. I do question their safety situation with Taylor Rapp and their ability to really be a rangy back end. But I like some pieces that they have. Teron Johnson, the nickel corner, is one of the best in the NFL. He's up there with Cooper DeJean and Kenny Moore. So, yeah, I mean, they have some pieces there defensively to help them out and kind of play complementary football.
Yeah, so I guess the big question last year was, did they have enough weapons for Josh Allen? They had a lot of young players when they got rid of Diggs the year before. They kind of relied on young guys. They brought in Josh Palmer. Do they have enough weapons for Allen? I mean, I know he's good enough by himself to do some nice, amazing things. You mentioned James Cook, great running back, but do they have enough weapons in the pass game?
Yeah, I mean, they have Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel. They have a collection of pieces, but they don't have the dominant player that, like a Stephon Diggs, that he could throw to at any critical moment, and he was the go-to guy. They have a lot of pieces that teams are going to have to account for, but no one, in my opinion, that's going to command the football or the teams are going to have to game plan for. There's just a number of different pieces. Maybe Keon Coleman is that guy who takes a big leap forward. I liked his tape quite a bit coming out of Florida State. And so, I mean, he has all of the makings to be a number one, but we have yet to see it. So it's largely a projection.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. Look at the Bills, who obviously are a Super Bowl contending team. They won the East last year. The Dolphins, who have not won a playoff game since the year 2000, they are trying to get themselves back to the playoffs, get a playoff victory. They did it. Let's start with the quarterback situation in Tua Tagovailoa, who I always have trouble mentioning and pronouncing his name. But obviously Tua is a guy who's very polarizing. Where is he, and where is this offense with him?
I mean, honestly, I think he's a player that he is polarizing because of the health, but also when he's been available, he hasn't been someone who's going to elevate and take advantage of such a dynamic offense. And when you have someone like a Tyreek Hill and you have a Jalen Waddle and a Devin A-Chain, I mean, those are weapons that a lot of quarterbacks would salivate for. And so I don't think that Tua has really maximized that. He doesn't have the arm strength to really push the ball down the field and accent what some of his skilled players do. You'll learn about his health because he suffered a number of different head injuries. But it seems like every year we're waiting for him to take this leap forward, and we don't really see it. He kind of has sort of hit a plateau. And I think it's what you're seeing around the NFL, Mike, is it's really difficult for teams to part with even middling quarterbacks because the fear of the unknown through the draft, I think, sort of alters their perception. So teams are more inclined to keep what they know and kind of try to hope to build around and stockpile a lot of assets.
Well, and they went out and brought in Zach Wilson, too, who was the second overall pick, has been a complete bust. But it just goes to show that teams will just keep giving you a chance if they think you have talent. Because one of the problems with Miami, as much as Tua maybe hasn't reached the potential that we thought he would, whenever he goes out, they've been a complete disaster. And some of that is because they just aren't good enough around them. You take a look at the weapons there because they've got a ton of weapons. I mean, they've got some great weapons. And we always talk about quarterbacks. You know, whoa, what would he be without these two guys? Tua's got two of the best to throw to.
Yeah, he's got two of the best to throw to. I mean, they also have Darren Waller, the tight end, who obviously needs to be able to stay healthy. Of course, Devin A-Chain, I really like Jalen Wright from Tennessee, is the backup behind him, dynamic runner, who me and Greg Cosell were really effusive in our praise of coming out of the draft a couple years ago. And they also drafted Jonah Savanea, I believe. He's a right guard, and they drafted him in the second round. So they even armed him with some protection up front. So, I mean, there really aren't any more excuses you can make for Tua Tagovailoa. And whenever I see him sort of mentioned in the upper echelon of quarterbacks, I always tend to wince a little bit because, I mean, I just don't see it. He's had his opportunities, and he's been bypassed by a lot of younger quarterbacks.
On defense, Vic Fangio was there a couple of years ago. He comes to Philadelphia. Everybody praises him for the reason, a big reason anyway, that they won a Super Bowl. There's a lot of talent on this defense. They just brought back Minkah Fitzpatrick. They traded Jalen Ramsey away. When you look at the Dolphins' defense, they just drafted Kenneth Grant in the first round as well. Is this a playoff-level defense?
I actually like what they did in the draft, right? They drafted Kenneth Grant in the first round. They added Jordan Phillips, a defensive tackle from Maryland, who I got to see up close at Pro Day. They got him in the fifth round. I had a third-round grade on him, a late 3. Of course, there's Jalen Phillips, who's there. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who you mentioned. Cam Smith is a cornerback who has really good length, but I never really saw. I think they reached for him a little bit. I thought he was more of a project, and he really hasn't panned out to probably relative to expectations where he was drafted. But yeah, I mean, I like what they've done on defense, but I don't know offensively if they're going to be able to do enough to play complementary football because they are such a volatile unit with Tua Tagovailoa there at quarterback.
Yeah, they were 8-9 last year, by the way, and that's a team that has not won a playoff game in 25 years. It's unbelievable. The Miami Dolphins really trying to get that playoff win for them.
That's where I think the cornerback spot for them with Storm Duck and Cam Smith is going to be a problem area for them as well. I think they're going to have a tough time stopping teams.
All right, Andrew, let's look at the 5-12 Jets a year ago. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is out, and when you take a look at the quarterback's situation there with no Rodgers, a lot of people thought just getting Rodgers would be good enough for them to be a possible Super Bowl team last year. Well, they didn't even make the playoff. They were 5-12. The season was an outright disaster. They brought in Justin Fields. Tyrod Taylor will be the backup there. What do you think about Fields now leading this Jets offense?
Well, sometimes a change of scenery works, Mike, but for Justin Fields, I mean, I think that you want to supplement a young quarterback with talent. And I don't think outside of Garrett Wilson that they've done enough to give him surrounding talent. I mean, you have to give me something more than Josh Reynolds, something more than Tyler Johnson. Alan Lazard is a player whose name is mentioned seemingly every offseason and doesn't quite make that impact. Malachi Corley, the wide receiver from Western Kentucky. I talked a lot about him on your show last offseason. They drafted him in the third round. He really hasn't panned out to this point. He's more of a Deebo Samuel type of player. But, I mean, for Justin Fields, I think to be successful, you have to help him out a little bit. So I think the surrounding cast is a little underwhelming.
Yeah, you take a look at also at wide receiver, Garrett Wilson many people thought was on his way to stardom here. It seemed like he had a rocky relationship with Aaron Rodgers or something just didn't click between those two. Is he a guy that could be a number 1A wide receiver?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Explosive, twitchy, fast, and he can run every route in the route tree. He may not have the prototypical size of a number 1 wide receiver, but I mean, he can go. He's going to command a high volume of pass targets. Now, I'm just curious to see what this offense looks like under Tanner Engstrand and head coach Aaron Glenn, who of course was with the Lions last season. Yeah. So, I mean, that could look a lot different. But I think for Justin Fields, they need to find a way to get him into a rhythm, and a wide receiver like Garrett Wilson is somebody who can, because he can run every route on the route tree and really get things going early in games.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, our AFC East preview. Our division previews begin today. Membu was the draft pick for them in the first round, Armand Membu. They also took a tight end from LSU.
And Mason Taylor as well.
Right, yep. Who will be a interesting part of their offense. We'll see what they do. Breece Hall.
That's another one. That's another thing that's going to help a young quarterback like Justin Fields. Get him a young tight end who I believe Mason Taylor is going to be the best tight end in this draft class when their careers are all said and done. I like his ability as a receiver, as a blocker. He can work the seams, but I also think that he's so green that he has another level that he can tap into, whereas some of these other players like some of the higher tight ends, the Lovelands of the world, I think that they have a certain level that they can reach, where I think that someone like a Mason Taylor is continuously evolving.
Yeah, I know.
How LSU used them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember you talking about him during the draft, that you actually had him as your top tight end in this draft. He was a second-round pick by the Jets. Hey, they were supposed to have this great defense last year. What happened to this great defense last year that they were supposed to have?
Well, the offense wasn't very helpful, and they kind of got exploited a little bit. They were on the field a lot, and certain players didn't play to standards. C.J. Mosley's no longer there. Look, they have obviously Will McDonald, who I really like. He was a first-round pick in 2023. Quinnen Williams, 2019 first-round pick, one of the best players at his position. Jermaine Johnson, first-round pick, edge rusher, very good there. Linebacker, they're vulnerable. That's where I think teams are going to pick them apart. Now you're relying on, Quincy Williams and Jamian Sherwood. So, I think they're going to get picked apart there. Their secondary, obviously Sauce Gardner, everyone's very familiar with. But an addition that's going to fly under the radar, who I really liked when he played the nickel role with the Ravens, is Brandon Stevens. He gets his hands on a lot of footballs. I studied him quite a bit when he was at SMU. That's a quiet, under-the-radar addition. And they also have Andre Sisco, who they bring over from Jacksonville to play safety opposite either Malachi Moore, who they drafted, or Tony Adams.
All right, let's take a look at the Jets, of course, at 5-12, and move over to the New England Patriots. I think the Patriots, obviously, they got some buzz. They got a new coach. We just talked about the Jets. Aaron Glenn is in there. Mike Vrabel is the new head coach with the Jets. Let's start with them and that move. How big of an impact do you think Vrabel might have as the new head coach? Because this team has been dormant for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think he's going to provide some juice. I think he has some excitement, and he's going to kind of restore order and provide some structure there for the Patriots. He's obviously played there for many years. He's been there for a lot of the high times for them, and I think because of that, when you have that kind of experience and you've been a prominent figure in the team's history, you sort of command that respect right off the bat, regardless of what you've done in the past as a coach. So I think that's going to go a long way in sort of reestablishing some sort of continuity and cohesiveness.
All right, so Vrabel's in, and you take a look at their offense and what they're going to build around on offense. Drake May, year number 2 for Drake May. Diggs is there. They signed him in the offseason. Our old buddy Matt Collins, Demario Douglas, not a great, talented wide receiving core. Ramondre Stevenson, they've got him at the running back beside this. May, Hunter Henry is the tight end, top-level quarterback.
If Stephon Diggs can stay healthy, perhaps. There's a player there that I think is going to be a target monster. So if you're into fantasy football, you might be able to get this guy very late, and that is Demario Douglas. He caught a lot of passes with the Patriots with Drake May last season, or maybe it was in 2 seasons ago. I don't remember now, but he is somebody that I think is going to be the beneficiary of a player who's going to see a lot of volume over the middle of the field and be a security blanket. Hunter Henry, he moves really well. He's been in the league for a while. He's had some injuries, but he moves well. He runs good routes. That's another security blanket safety valve for a young quarterback in Drake May. And they also have supplied him with young offensive linemen that he can grow with in Will Campbell, in Cole Strange. You talk about bringing over Morgan Moses, and Garrett Bradbury is a veteran center. So they have some pieces there that should allow that offense to get off the ground a little smoother than last season.
Yeah, Will Campbell was their first-round pick, by the way, the offensive tackle out of LSU. They signed Morgan Moses. Garrett Bradbury's there, so that they've put some stock into that offensive line, which was a disaster. Their offense was a disaster the last couple of seasons, so we'll see if they can get that on board. But they spent a lot of money on defense, including adding Milton Williams. You got Christian Barrymore there. You've got Harold Landry there. This defense should be much better than more of the Patriots' defenses we remember.
Yeah, Keon White, the edge rusher, taken the second round in 23. Former Eagles linebacker Christian Ellis is also there. And they brought over Carlton Davis to play corner. He was with the Detroit Lions formerly. I really like Kyle Duggar, the safety. He's more of a hybrid type of player, but kind of rangy for his size. And Jabril Peppers is all over the field. And so Christian Gonzalez is another guy. And my 2 favorite guys in that secondary, Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback, who was their first-round pick in 23, and Marcus Jones, their third-round pick in 2022, who plays the nickel role, super fast and just really dynamic in short area and has that kind of quickness. So I like what they have there on defense especially.
All right, your AFC East, take a look at only one team finished with a winning record last year. That was Buffalo, 13-4. Miami, 8-9. The Jets, 5-12. That was a disastrous season. And New England got their coach fired, Jared Mayo, after one season at 4-11. Are we looking at one playoff team in the East again this year, Andrew? How do you have the AFC East going in 2025?
One playoff team, Mike, for me, that'll be the Bills, but I have it sort of slotted out. Excuse me, Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets.
All right, so Bills at the top, Dolphins again, Patriots making a move out of the basement, and the Jets, all the Jets fans. I'm talking to you guys up there in Long Beach Island. We're talking to you guys up there in Ocean County. Your Jets are going to be in the basement, says Andrew DiCecco. All right, football at 4. Our division previews continue next week with the AFC North. We'll finish up with the AFC South and West in the month of July. When we get to August, we will be turning the page over to the NFC, and that will lead us up to the opener, Eagles and the Cowboys, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Andrew DiCecco, everybody. Thanks, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You bet, man. You too.
All right, there's Andrew DiCecco. Our division previews continue all throughout the month of July and August here on the Sports Bash.